What's up, Vibers? We are back in. It is April 16th, which means it's right in the middle of Eva's month. So we have this sort of balance patch coming through with all the big changes that hit just 2 weeks ago when Eva got released. So my goal for this video is to first give you a quick overview of everything that's changed so you can kind of be in the loop. And then we're going to take a look at each change a little more in detail. If there's anything relevant in Practice Tool, we can show that. And all that will be timestamped so you can easily find your way to what you're looking for. So diving right in, this is honestly probably one of the best balance patches I've seen. There's not a ton happening like overall, but some of the things they're hitting are some like, kind of long standing like outliers that should have been fixed maybe a little while ago. So I think it overall is like a pretty solid patch. Brief overview here. There's a big change with account unlocking where you're actually going to unlock a lot of sort of features of the game as a new player as you progress through your hunter's journey. And this is basically, it sounds like, in an attempt to make this stuff more easily learnable as players progress instead of getting overwhelmed with everything all at once. I still think that even with all this, we need a much, much better tutorial. And the tutorial needs to perhaps, like every one of these unlocks, needs to like take you to a little mini tutorial that shows you how your armor evolves, shows you, takes you into an arena game, like shows you how consumables work, like whatever, right? Like there needs to be a much, much better intro tutorial, and that tutorial should lead you into this content instead of this content just being sort of separate in its own progression. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, and so I think this is pretty good. And we'll take a look at those in the menu so you can just see them. Coming down to hunter balance real quick, Eva got a really nice buff. Jin had his mobility touched in a very, I think, like fair way, because I do think the LMB was a little crazy. We'll talk more about that. Some clarity around Beebo's LMB, which I think are really good for just like readability. We have finally touched to last stand, actually a halving of the bonus healing, so pretty big there. This is actually really cool. You're just going to have a bigger vision cone. So 200 units in this like circle around you right here, and then 500 units in the actual cone. You can see, I can see like a monster length away. Some quality of life changes, like there were some abilities that weren't calculating their AoE damage correctly, and it's basically these ones. So basically just like fixing those abilities to work properly with the way they do damage. There's tuning on the sound effects for a couple things. So like Void R&B and Beebo Tonk Tonk, and especially like from Fog of War type stuff. So the audio cues should be clear for this stuff. And then coming down to tooltips, shout out to Enigmatic for, it sounds like, identifying a lot of this stuff and helping with this. But there's basically, a lot of the tooltips, a lot of the abilities were old, outdated, like they were worded based on how they used to work, and then they got changed and they were never updated, like all kinds of stuff like that. So basically all of the tooltips, or not all of them, but hopefully like most of them have been sort of adjusted and updated so that they reflect like the current state of the game and added some clarity to how they work. So we'll take a look at those. And then coming down to skins loadouts, just like your rare skins that are like a recolor of the base skin are going to be more easily like visible and accessible instead of like hidden under the base skin as a chroma. Couple bug fixes. There have been some hotfix patches that have gone out in the last 2 weeks. I think 2 or 3. So actually a decent amount that did some stuff like some Eva touches and some bug fixes since trios were introduced. And so here are 2 more that are kind of knocked out in this patch. And then coming down to this final stuff, these were changes that were in a previous hotfix but were not documented. So they're basically mana changes to Kingpin and Joule. And I think when the mana changes went through, Kingpin was probably one of the hunters that got kind of hit the hardest by him, where like you couldn't even do one full rotation of his abilities at lower level without like a mana item. He was like so starved for mana, and especially early on, it seemed like. And so in a hotfix that has already happened, they have adjusted that. So, basically pretty big 25% reduction on the Abyssal Grasp mana cost, and then another 25% off of the shift. And then coming down to Joule, I think it's basically the same kind of thing. I heard a lot about the Kingpin. I didn't hear as much about the Joule. I think because a lot of people gave up on the Joule after the iframe changes. But anyways, she got a similar kind of touch where the shift looks like it's down, 20% by 5 here, which is, her most usability by far. And so that's going to help a bit. And then the Thunderstorm down quite a bit, 50 to 35 mana here. So some nice just like mana touches to help them actually be able to like rotate their abilities in a reasonable way, especially early on, I think. All right, let's take a look at this account unlocking. So basically, the main thing to note here is if you're over level 25 already, like you're going to be completely unaffected by these changes. But a new player that makes a new account is essentially going to unlock these things as they progress up through level 25. So let's just like take a look at them here. So like level 2, you get your first hunter token for a hunter unlock. At level 3, you're going to get armor evolved. So you're going to basically be informed that so this is where I was saying, like, I think there needs to be, you know, literally when you unlock this, there needs to be some kind of tutorial in game associated with it, where it's like, here's how you ascend your armor. Like, here are the ascended armor levels. Here's the mitigation each one gives. Like, just the, you know, the core things that are important to know about ascending armor. Like, this is cool. But there's a lot more you could know here in a very quick, like that could be a 3-minute little tutorial that it drops you in right when you unlock armor evolves, right? And it's like, you know, shows you the armor levels, shows you the mitigation they give, shows you the repair costs, like all the sort of associated things that are going to be important when you're thinking about, you know, armor evolves and such. So I just really hope they move to that sort of like style, because I just think and I've given this feedback a ton, the tutorial is absolute garbage. The new player, like especially before trios were introduced, like new players just defaulting onto duos and they could just insta queue ranked duos. Like there are no games that are like that. Like every other game, like you can't play a ranked game of Marvel Rivals till you're level 10. It takes a freaking decade to get to level 10. So anyways, I think this stuff is like on the right track, but I think they need to go way deeper with the tutorial type stuff, especially actually bringing players into game, forcing them through some of the very fundamental type stuff, so that they have to basically learn it, and thus it's going to be, you know, much less overwhelming in the long run. All right, so level 4, hunter token. Level 5, you unlock the daily missions, and then you can click it, and it'll like take you over there, right? And then the weekly missions, and then another hunter unlock at 7. Here, you at level 8, you unlock the ability to like evolve your weapon. It says upgrading a piece of equipment to blue tier during the match will grant 3 powerful choices. So it's like, you know, first you're starting with just your base items, and then once you're at level 8, you're like, oh, I can evolve this into new stuff. Then you unlock the arena mode at level 9. You unlock your like fine ability to level up your final ability. So you know, up to level 10, you're just kind of learning your abilities, and then at level 10, you find out you can take one to your like super ability at level 4. Another hunter token. You learn that you can evolve your boots, same way you can evolve, you know, your weapons down here. And then you unlock your 3rd consumable slot. So you like learn, you know, bringing some awareness to pots and like just the kind of consumable bar down here. Level 14, you unlock the seasonal missions. At level 15, you actually unlock the RNG like warped evolve from Beebo's tour that's kind of stayed in the game. A lot of people really enjoy it. I'm a big fan of this. And so it's kind of the next, you know, step of the weapon evolves, just like another, 7 levels up. Then hunter token at 16. Ability to hold a 2nd power, so they're wanting to just start you off with just 1 power to just sort of like get you used to like what they are and not, you know, overwhelm you with trying to use them. Then so at 17 you get your 2nd power slot, 18 you get your 4th consumable slot, 19 you get hunter mastery, starting like your unlocks and stuff. Hopefully like what you've done up to this point counts. But level 20, you're gonna get your first little glider. It's like moss green. Skyline's bronze, I guess it's kind of bronze. The wings are definitely green. 21, another hunter token. 22, you will unlock the ranked mode. So this is kind of what I was getting at earlier with the like Marvel Rivals point, is like most competitive games have some sort of, you know, you're forced to play through some quantity of matches before you are allowed to play ranked. And I think this is generally pretty good. My only kind of concern here just right now, like before they do their marketing push and stuff with like 1.0, is that the unranked queue times might be kind of long. Like I don't know how many new players are kind of flooding in right now. And so if you're not able to actually queue a ranked game until you're level 22 on the 100 Battle Pass, my fear is that the normal, which I haven't tried yet, I've been out for like a week, and so I haven't got a chance to play much trios. I played like day 1. But I'm going to be getting back into it this week. But my fear is that there might not be enough unranked people queuing. Hopefully that's not true, and that's just off base. But, you know, you're going to basically have to queue many unranked games to get to level 22 and be able to queue ranked. And remember, these are split lobbies now. So if you're unranked, you're not going to be playing against any ranked players. These are totally separate, you know, lobbies of, you know, 3 teams of 12. But like player base aside, I think this is like a really good look. Like I do think this is the right idea, you know, overall. And then only call sign here. Let's see, only vibe, baby. And then level 24, you get the ability to unlock custom games. Remember, for this, you need at least 8 people to start them, at least like a BR one, because of like server stuff. So they want to actually make sure you're actually, doing something. And then finally, level 25, you're going to unlock executes, and this ability. And I'm amazed by how many people don't actually know that this fully heals you. Like it gives you all your health and mana back. It's not just like a BM thing. So, at level 25, you'll unlock the ability to do this, and that's kind of the last level in the step of these, evolves here. And keep in mind, it says here, we'll be examining the results of these changes that may tweak or adjust individual unlocks depending on how things go. Our hope is that new players will have clear gameplay rewards they're excited to unlock and additional opportunities to learn about deeper mechanics once they've grasped the fundamentals of SUPERVIVE, rather than front-loading it all at the beginning. All right, now coming down to Hunter balance, there is a very, very nice Eva buff here. So it says, Eva launched in a fairly underpowered state. We gave her a few hotfix buffs once we saw she was struggling, but these ones should put her more on par with the rest of the cast and lean into her unique orb-based playstyle. So big changes to the RMB, the Orb of Argos, that you throw out, and you can have 2 of them, and this is the thing where you can like tether and move them around, and we can see just right away the tether movement's way better than it was. Like, it was really kind of slow and clunky. You can actually sort of move them around now. And we got a bunch of other changes. So they not only move better, but they should also get caught on like terrain less. Like, you should be able to kind of navigate them around pillars and such like this. You're still going to lose the beam on LOS, but you can actually kind of, maneuver them a little bit more. We see the orb health up by 500, so pretty big jump there. Decrease, so it's going to be 2,000 total now. Decrease the cooldown, so 2 seconds at level 1, 2 seconds at level 2, and 1 second at level 3 at max level. And then increase the orb healing by 50%, which that is a fatty healing buff for the orb. Like, she was getting a lot of healing. I think she does get a lot of healing through the direct tether, but she was already kind of pumping heals. There was some other things that were limiting her ability to do that, but like, this is going to really pump her heals up. Like, that's a big number. I haven't gotten a chance to play her, like, barely at all, but it definitely felt like her mobility was a little limited. So I think this is, a change in the right direction here, like a shift cooldown reduction. Potentially even something with the shift being able to, get it back somehow. But the cooldown, level 1 goes from 9 to 8, down a second, down another second at level 2. To 6.5, and then another second, level 3 to 5.5. So it's going to be 8, 6.5, 5.5 for your new shift cooldowns, and then just a base move speed increase here from 445 to 465. So she's just going to be cruising around slightly faster, even with just regular boots. And honestly, like I think these are all kind of good, especially these 3. Like, the orb movement, the shift, and the base move speed all together, like, is going to just let her feel, I think, a little better, because it just felt like fairly clunky, especially like 2 weeks ago, right when she was launched, like before any of the hotfixes. But now that you can throw your orbs out, you can move your orbs around faster, you can move yourself faster. Like, you still have the big move speed reduction when you're tethered, right? But just the fact that you have 20 more base move speed, these move more fluidly, you can move them around terrain better, and on top of extra second cooldown off of the shift, like, I think all those things are going to add up to make her gameplay and playstyle just feel a little more fluid, like the rest of the cast does, right? Where most of the hunters feel good to play, especially once you kind of get a level of mastery on them, because of the combined movement and combat stuff they can do. So I think this will kind of put her more on a similar level in that vein. All right, now coming down to our boy Jin, I actually really like this change, because I do think the LMB has been always been a little busted. The fact that you can get basically more movement than any other hunter for free off of this LMB Shmoom tech. Don't get me wrong, it's cool as hell. Jin is one of the funnest hunters to play, but it just seems so powerful in comparison to what a lot of other hunters could do. And you didn't even have to glide with it. You didn't have to dash. If you did glide and dash and use that movement in combat, he's literally the fastest hunter in the game, impossible to catch by anyone. And combine that with his ability to do that over Abyss and basically sustain almost infinitely over the Abyss. He's just an incredibly strong movement hunter, but he kind of needs that to execute on his assassin playstyle, right? So I never have really thought that they should take that away. Like, anytime, the same thing with the Zeph B-Hop and the Oath pod racing. Anytime you've already, unlocked some movement tech in the game and are trained up on it and it's feeling good, like I don't like removing that stuff. It generally feels really bad, kind of going the other way. But this kind of change is actually really like kind of thoughtful and interesting, where they're not taking away his ability to do the LMB movement. What they're doing is making it count like an actual ability as far as the mana regen goes. So they're adding this little 5 mana if you actually connect it, like encouraging you, to use it actually in combat instead of just for movement. But now, basically like you're using your abilities, you're using some mana and stuff. As your mana is getting consumed, like we see I'm like at 80 here. If I LMB, it's not going to charge, right? So the 4-second rule where you have to not cast anything to get your mana to charge, the LMB now counts as an ability. So that's basically the change, along with the 5 mana added to it. And what this is going to do is like, you can still be doing, using the movement, but if you don't have any mana, you have to basically wait 4 seconds, not LMBing, to get your mana back to full. And so you have to, you can continue using your LMB to get away, but if you're you're not going to be able to combine it with your shift, you're not going to be able to combine it with your Q out over Abyss and stuff. And so it just is going to put a little bit of a dampener on his ability to infinitely get away. And it's going to make him think a little bit more about, finding a quick spot to like get the mana back real quick and actually be back to full power Jin. And I think that's the window that other hunters need to be able to actually, catch and try to counter what he's trying to do with the LMB movement. So, I think rather than removing this altogether, this is a way better change. We'll have to see how this plays out, but I think this is, fair. All right, coming down to Beebo, it's mainly changes to the LMB visibility. So LMB is now split up into 2 discrete segments and last combined 1.3 seconds. So there's basically 2 chunks of the LMB cast bar now. And we can see this blue part is the first chunk and then the purple part is the second chunk. So there's added clarity like on his little cast bar above his head there. And this first part, so this is when you see the blue bar charging like this is 0.8 seconds to charge. And this is when the LMB reaches full knockback. So, and this is when the bat will wall stun. So this is basically when you're fighting against Beebo or you are Beebo, like right when you finish that blue, that's when your LMB is kind of at the power to do, the max knockback wall stun type stuff. Then the next stage is literally just signaling the damage increase. So for the next like kind of discrete chunk, if you get this through and you get the purple all the way through and you see that little flash there, that's like max damage of the LMB. So the first thing is going to give you like the utility of the knockback and the wall stun. The second bar is going to give you max damage. And that's now much clearer, not only to the Beebo player and in this little cast bar down here, but also to enemy players, looking at his nameplate. We can also see LMB knockback at full charge was reduced by 20% for everything that's not a B-bomb. So you can still hit the B-bombs the same exact distance, but everything else is going to be knocked back by 20% less. The cast bar now shows the segments that we just talked about, and the LMB segments down at the bottom left here also reflect, these same changes similar to other hunters. Last Stand, this is actually, this has been a dominant item for a very long time, where it was just incredibly strong, and you would, often build it on almost any hunter that was going vamp, especially if you had like a Zeph or any kind of healing on your team, or if you were one of these hunters that are thriving off of Nox and that heal you get from, and especially since the healing was introduced with the knock reset, like it even like got higher in priority because hunters that didn't have a ton of healing in their kit could all of a sudden get this huge benefit from bonus healing. And so that's been literally cut in half. So for the first time, we get a not only a little, but a pretty big last stand adjustment. So, it's still going to have all the base core, but the actual effect of it giving you bonus healing under the threshold is going to be halved, essentially. I still think it'll be a good item, but I think it'll be more in line with the rest of items, where instead of just grabbing it on anyone that's getting knocks, you maybe have to think more about, is your kit leaning into, resetting on low health as you're getting knocks, or do you have a healer that's able to pump you when you're low health and get value out of that benefit? All right, so taking a look at systems, this is a really cool change with the vision cones, in my opinion. It says we're increasing the size of hunter vision cones to reward strategic play. The goal is to give you more information to make decisions like pathing or how to approach a fight. This should help reduce the frequency of surprise third partying and unearned ambushes. So basically your proximity, which is the area just around your character, is up by 200 units. So you can see it's like, I can see a little bit further behind me when I'm facing this way, just this circle right here. And then the actual vision cone is up by 500 units. So look at how freaking far I can see now if I control out. And so, you're just going to have a lot more ability to kind of have full vision of your screen. If you're holding control, this slows your movement speed and stuff. So there is, but you can very easily, kind of just toggle it quickly and look in different directions to gain information, and I think that overall is going to be good for being able to just understand what's around you on your screen if you take the, the second to look there. All right, coming down to QOL, these are basically just abilities that were not correctly dealing damage to destructibles, such as vault, pylons, trees, walls, etc. And they've done a pass to make this more consistent on these abilities. So the Napalm on Ghost, and it looks like the Rain of Arrows on Myth, the Lightning Strike and Thunderstorm on Joule, and the Magi Reactive Burst on Krista, all should be now correctly dealing their AoE damage to destructibles. Next, we have tunings for enemy sound effects. So basically, they've seen some feedback about audio cues being hard to notice. And so they're taking a look at some of the biggest culprits. And these are basically Void's RMB, which is the stun, and especially when he casts it from Fog of War. And it says, did a mix and priority change for enemy perspective? And then Beebo's Tonk Tonk, the R volume adjustments, especially when cast off screen. So similar to the Fog of War stuff, where you can actually maybe hear the car coming before it just flies in from behind you at max speed. And fix a bug where the loop shuts off when Beebo jumps out the cart. So the sound loop should continue even if Beebo hops out now. All right, coming down to tooltips, it says, with player feedback, thanks, Adigmatic. Thanks, Adigmatic. We've made a number of fixes to existing tooltip issues and took some time to refresh our new player tooltips too. So there's a huge list of kind of updated tooltips here. One of the biggest ones at the top here is that abilities that have charges now show their charge refresh time as the cooldown instead of the minimum cast time between two things. So like Brawl Dash, for example. Like, see that thing? See the red thing on the outer? That was what it showed before as the big cooldown. And now we can see the actual charge cooldown as well as that, the cooldown before casting again. And if we're all the way out of charges, we see the split second of having to cast it again, but then we can actually see the full number, right? And so, just going to be pretty good, a bit more clarity, kind of showing you what your actual cooldowns are on multiple cast abilities. Updated Beebo's LMB tooltip to match the knockback stuff we talked about. Added shield duration to Bubble Shield tooltip. Bubble Blade lasts 4 seconds. Added buff duration to Perseverance. I actually can't figure out what this one is referring to. Because I'm pretty sure this is exactly what the tooltip said before, and there's not a buff duration. It's just after 3 seconds. Maybe that's what they added, after 3 seconds of combat, but it's just like LMB, you hit it and it heals you and does the max thing. There's not like a duration on that. And since we were talking about the last stand changes here, we can see on the last stand, it'll show the 25% now. We can see shield duration added to overdrive, so shield lasts 3 seconds. Celeste's RMB, the Ice Spear, now does explosive damage on both impact and detonation, as per the tooltip, so now the effect lines up with what the tooltip says. Fixed an error on Felix's Ignite that incorrectly said that abilities get their cooldown refunded. Added additional information about Brawl's Caldera, Molten Greatsword damage, and mana gain, Flame Step, Sweet Spot damage. I'm actually interested in what they changed there, because Brawl has some of the deepest tooltips in the game. So we can see here's the advanced one. Slashing a cone in front of you, dealing damage. Landing hits in the center, gives you bonus damage, signifying the sweet spot, generates 5 mana, and then tells you about the hold. Release fire to charge a ranged blast, restores mana, and quickly builds Blazing Spirit. So just, these are all the things we already knew about Brawl, just adding clarity to it. And if we look at the simplified tooltip, it's better even. Press for a quick series of melee attacks, hits in the center, do more damage, hold to charge a ranged fire blast. So, kind of giving you all the essentials there. And then Flame Step, Sweet Spot damage. So dash while attacking in your facing direction, dealing damage. Enemy hit at the tip of the attack, take this bonus amount of damage instead. Refunds mana cost on hit as well, remember. And some of these things you have to actually hold Alt and look at the advanced tooltip to see. Like we can see it doesn't talk about the sweet spot for Flame Step if we're not holding Alt. They've added additional information about Jin's Shadow Grace movement speed. So we can see here, Jin is warned when he's being watched by an enemy, gaining 100 movement speed while out of sight of enemy hunters. Landing attacks increases your movement speed in combat. So your first hit gives you 10 movement speed, your second hit gives you 30 move speed, and your third hit gives you 60 move speed. And we can see right under that in the gray text, stacks fall off if you don't land an attack for 4 seconds. So basically, if you're not being seen by anyone, you have the 100, but then when you are in combat and you're landing your attacks, you're going to get this stacking movement speed up to 60, and if you don't land an attack within 4 seconds, that will fall off. Added additional information about Joule's static, passive duration, surge shift mana gain, and lightning strike Q grounding during meditation. So if we look at the passive, damaging enemies applies stacks of static. At 4 stacks, they are statically charged. Stacks last 4 seconds. Dashing through a static charge enemy with surge resets its cooldown, damages them for 45% of their max health, plus this bonus amount, and restores 100 mana. And taking a look at the shift, hold and release to dash while incorporeal to projectiles. That's the big iframe change that happened not too long ago. Striking targets you pass through, dealing damage. Hitting targets with maximum stacks of static applies static charge passive, dealing bonus damage. Fully reset shifts cooldown and restores 100 mana. Collecting lightning orbs, which is basically what it's telling us over here with the shift. And then also collecting lightning orbs resets the cooldown. So just more clarity on that. And then added clarity to the grounding duration on the Q. So hold to select a location, release to aim, delayed bolt of lightning. Struck targets are launched toward the aim direction, grounded for 1.2 seconds, and receive 1 stack of static, deals X amount of damage, can be used to launch allied enemy wisps. Added additional information about Myth's Heart Piercer RMB charge duration. Okay, so it's this gray text at the very bottom. Charged arrows do more damage and knock enemies further away. Max damage and knockback at 1 second. And so basically, just know if you're Myth that it's 1 second on the RMB charge to get the max value out of the push and the damage you're going to get on that. And that's basically what's signified by, I'm pretty sure this icon over your head is basically telling you that. So if you charge the RMB, as soon as you see this icon drop, it means it's fully charged. See that little, that thing above my head? As soon as it's gone, you're at your max power, max knockback of that. Added additional information about Shiv's Fusillade, the ult. So if we look at it, after short delay, fire up to 5 shots at each nearby enemy for 2 seconds. Each shot deals X amount of damage and resets the duration of all stacks of Malice and Resolve, which are our passive stacking that damage. Targets in the outer ring take bonus damage and are anti-healed for 6 seconds. While active, gain 2 charges of a weaker quick flip, the left shift, and you may shoot LMB while in Fusillade. So I think those are the things that weren't there. At least I don't remember those being there, where it's actually telling you can still LMB while you're Fusillading, and it's telling you can weaker flip. There also used to be, and I think it's still in, sort of a hidden mechanic to the Fusillade, where if you imagine 2 targets being lined up, and I actually learned this from Wadel, and I think it's still true. But basically, imagine Shrike is here, and there's an enemy here in the outer ring. So imagine Shrike's in the inner ring, and there's an enemy here in the outer ring. Basically, what's going to happen here is the R does pen, or at least it used to. And so Shrike is not only going to be taking the inner circle damage, because you're shooting at this target in the outer circle, it's going to be passing through Shrike for the bonus outer circle damage. So if you're able to line up targets, like same way you're always looking to line up targets with your Bolo when you're on Shiv, if you're able to line up targets in the ultimate, the inner target is actually going to be taking the inner shots damage, which are less, but they're also taking the shots you're shooting at the target on the outer side of the ring. So you're going to completely delete someone who's right next to you with an ally behind them if you kind of have the positioning properly, because they're going to be getting hit by literally 2 rounds of Fusillade. This inner one plus the outer one going to their friend. I just used my new glider for the first time. I haven't had a chance to throw this baby on yet. I made a last second 5-day squad push to try to get GM, and we did it with 2 hours left in squad's queue. Fixed the tooltip error on Kingpin's Abyssal Grasp and added additional information on Slugwave ult second shot delay. So if we look at Slugwave, fire a wave of 6 Eldritch Sludge. Fire a wave of 6 Eldritch Slugs. Say that 6 times fast. Each dealing damage and applying anti-heal. After a 0.6 second delay, fire another wave. So that's what's basically added, where you get your first shot and we can see the little cast bar even signifies the second one coming through, and the tooltip basically showing you that's 0.6 seconds. Finally, updated new player tooltips to cover more events and includes bug fixes to current ones. So just overall a bunch of sort of healthy changes to tooltips to make everything more clear for everyone. Next we have skins loadouts, and this is just a really small change where they basically made it so your rare skins, which are just the recolors of the base skin, appear as their own skin now instead of as a chroma. So before, you had to click on your myth skin and you would see your recolor over here. So this desert flower one's a recolor. It was right here before under variants of the base skin. Now it's its own skin on the left. So literally just making it more clear, that you kind of own this skin, and it's not, it's still a recolor, but it's just telling you that it's its own skin. It's more visibly obvious on the left selection here. And then quickly going over these couple bug fixes, and they did fix some bugs in the hotfixes that were deployed over the last 2 weeks, but it says fix an issue where some players would get stuck in the skip hunt or unlock screen if they had already obtained all hunters, and also fix an issue where certain resurrection beacons were displaying inaccurate timers. And then finally, coming down to the last bit here, errata, it says these changes were live in a previous hotfix, but were not documented in the notes. So for Kingpin and Joule, we think it's healthy for them to interact more with the mana system and for that to introduce a degree of windowing into their kits. However, we don't want them to be completely gassed after a full ability rotation. While mana items are still a good solution for those who want to spam constant hooks, we want to give Kingpin and Joule a touch more breathing room to dash away or fire a key ability. So we can see on Kingpin, mana cost reduced by 10, down 25% on the RMB, mana cost down 25% on the air dash, so going to give him a lot more ability, especially early on, to hook and shift. And then same exact thing with Joule here, where the shift has been reduced by 20%, down 5, and that's going to be her main pump, so she's going to be doing that a lot. And then the R also reduced by a significant amount, down 15 here. And boom, those are our April 16th, middle of the month, Eva month patch notes. So I hope that was useful. I hope that was valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to take care of yourself. Keep vibing. Catch you in the next one. Peace.